About a month ago now, I had reacted to a video, gone over, covered, however you want to phrase it, a video by Fif Badaki, uh, titled "Why Representation Isn't the Solution." I believe that was the title, right? Yeah, "Why Representation Isn't the Solution." I had done my response to it entitled "My Solution to the Representation Argument." Now, as I had talked about in the video itself, I very much believed that Fif at the time made good points, and overall, I did agree with him on the issues, but kind of just disagreed with the solution, so to speak. And, ultimately, his stance on the matter, as we'll go over in a minute here, was that you know, race swapping shouldn't happen at all. Whether it's non-white to white, white to non-white, anything like that. Race swapping just shouldn't happen. And my stance ultimately is that race swapping always has existed, and it there's nothing wrong with it. These are fictional. As long as they're fictional characters and everything, I don't see any issue with it. At the end of the day, and I believe that positive representation is good and very important because it's how people in many ways get to see um like cultures and people outside of their own little bubble that they might live in, things like that. So we'll go over those in the specifics, but anyway, Fif had responded to me where he said, "Hey Christian, great video. I made a response on my channel, but I just wanted to come back and say thank you for your exceedingly respectful approach in voicing your disagreements. If this video is any indication as to what the rest of your content is like, then I hope that your channel continues to grow. Take care and all the best." So I do, I do actually, I went to his channel and he did. He released a video entitled "Representation Continued, My Response." And this is ultimately what we're going over here because there are a lot of things that he covers because I watched through the whole thing. And I gotta tell you guys, it was wild seeing somebody else talk about me rather than to me or anything like that. Like, it was, wild. I'm sure it probably was for him too because he's never had anyone directly react to any of his content either, he said. But I'm to Fif specifically, if you're watching this, I want to let you know the the feeling is mutual. I think the way that you responded and everything was also very, very, very kind and well articulated and things of that nature. I wanted to take this moment really for one, to thank you for that. I know there are tons of people that are just extremely vitriolic online and stuff, and I, of course, and in the real world, and I try to be somebody that is not somebody that really does delve into the nuance of perspectives and try to just offer things that are going to be the most positive for the most amount of people, all that stuff, right? So I do very much thank you for that. And as well, I want to I want to get into the video itself because, for one, there were definitely some things that I could have phrased better. There were some things where I had kind of misspoken. Um, I know at one point I had said this is something that Thief doesn't seem to understand when he did, and there's just a lot that I kind of want to clarify when going over this. I think that we do still largely disagree on the core fundamental thing here, which is fine. We can agree to disagree. But in any case, I wanted to respond to this as well, and I don't think that either of us will be responding to each other again because, well, he even says later in this video at the end that he doesn't think he'll do a response again. But I did want to go through this as well. And anyway, so without further ado, representation continued. My response.
That I believe many who support the positive representation solution are either intentionally neglecting or simply haven't considered, because they believe that their idea of positive representation is the idea of positive representation. Alright, so it happened. Somebody actually made a response to my video on representation. And I have to say that they did a pretty awesome job. This response, although it was made in disagreement, was in no way rude, dismissive, or disparaging. They did exactly what I asked. Their critique felt like it was made in good faith and with no ill intent towards either myself or my arguments. And so before I get into my actual response, I just want to take a second and offer a truly heartfelt thank you to Christian Verstappen. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now,
Hey, you did. Yeah, Verstappen. Well, you said Verstappen. Verstappen. But yeah, hey, could be worse. And when I was in like kindergarten or something, my name was written Verslappen with an L, to which my dad responded. He was so like mad about it. He was like, oh, I'll give them a Verslappen. Like, chill.
Now, his video is an hour and 24 minutes long, so I'm going to
And this one might be longer.
split my response up into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to address what I believe
By the way, when he says that, he does not mean two separate videos. That's what I thought he meant originally.
is the fundamental difference between our modes of thought. This is the hypothesis that I believe every other counterpoint he makes in his video stems from. And honestly, I think that addressing that main point would suffice. However, for whatever reason, I do feel compelled to address some of the other points that he made in his response. So that's going to be part 2 of this video, addressing many of the other individual claims that were made throughout his video. Now,
By the way, I do want to point out real quick, some people might, I don't know, think it's not necessary or whatever to deal with like civility politics or stuff like that. I completely disagree. Anybody that thinks like being too nice to somebody that you're disagreeing with, no. First of all, he's well-intentioned. He means the best with everything he's talking about. I am the same way. I have no ill will toward him. I'm sure he doesn't toward me. And we're just two people having we're not having a direct conversation, but we're having essentially a back and forth, so to speak, here.
again, his video is 1 hour and 24 minutes long, so I probably won't be able to respond to
Yeah, and I recommend you watch it if you should give it a watch. Shameless plug.
each individual point. And so I'm going to link his full video in the description below. And if you have the time, please go and check it out in its entirety so that you can get the full context of his argument. Obviously, I'll do my best not to misrepresent him in this video, but
Yeah, from what I remember, he does a good job of not like clipping me out of context or anything like that, from what I remember.
the best way to truly understand his argument is to get it from him directly. So again, I just want to say another thank you to Christian. But with all that,
And I'll say the same for Fief. The best way to get his argument is to get it from him directly as well, of course. Like, even though when I cover this stuff, I watch the whole video in its entirety, I still would recommend watching the entire video on your own if you really want to, and the supplemental material and stuff like that, which he'll get into in a moment, and I'll talk about that as well in a minute.
that said, let's just get into the discussion. Do you believe that media should have the power to determine the limits of the human beings that engage with their stories? Personally, I don't.
Wait a minute, hang on. We have to do something here. Otherwise, hang on. There we go.
I don't believe that the media should have that power.
We got two Amis. This is so wild. If I did do a third one, I'd have to put myself like in the middle or something, and like we just have more. It's like that. It'd be like that clip from Bo Burnham. The oh god, what is the? It's like. Is it the one? Yeah, unpaid intern reaction video. This one where he's like, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, especially because of possible copyright. But you know, he's like reacting to his video, then he's reacting to his reaction of the video, reacting to it's great, really good shit. But anyway, I don't want to have that scenario going on here
At all.
Okay, this is it. This is it right here. So it's not about whether or not the media should have that power. I agree that it shouldn't. But there are a lot of systems and such in place that shouldn't have a certain amount of power in our life that just do.
Okay, so first off, I'm glad that we agree that this power should not be in the hands of the media. This is an extremely important aspect of this conversation, so I do not want to gloss over this. So let's just establish that insofar as the media has the power to influence our perceptions of ourselves and others, you and I agree that this authority is unwarranted. Again, this is very important and will be a consistent theme in this discussion.
Yeah, this will be on the test.
So I just want to make sure to place the necessary amount of emphasis on this point. But anyway, you then go on to say,
we can't live in the world of just how we would like it to be, as far as, oh, this shouldn't affect us, that shouldn't, like, these things shouldn't matter, however you want to, any of that. Like, it doesn't matter how it should be, it matters how it is.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay, let me have him talk first, and then I want to explain my point further there.
Okay, so I disagree with the notion that you cannot focus on how things should be while also taking into account how things actually are. I believe that my solution, which again isn't really mine, so I guess I should say, I believe that the combination of already proposed solutions that I just compiled and presented actually do address how things are while also moving us in the direction of how you and I agree things should be. Again, just as a reminder, the solution that I presented involves addressing the systemic issues in Black and other minority communities that keep these areas isolated and impoverished. I understand that this has already been in the works for centuries. So all I'm really saying is that I believe our focus should remain in this arena and not the representation ideal. Because once the avenues of success are opened up for these communities, they won't need to see representations of themselves achieving this success in media, since they would already hold the understanding that they are capable of reaching those heights, since their friends and family members have already done so. Similarly, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but the wider audience won't need to see these minorities represented in these contexts either, because this reality will already be reflected in their daily lives. And in the meantime, as it pertains to media, I did already endorse the push for the diversification of storytelling in my original videos, albeit for very different reasons.
Yes, but what my point with all of that was to say that we have a level of, okay, first of all, when addressing systemic issues and stuff, just as I said in the previous video about this, yes, he's absolutely correct about that. But, and it's funny because he even said that I believe we should be able to work on issues as they presently are while also addressing like larger issues. Yes, that's kind of my point with this too. We can agree and work to address systemic issues that cause minorities to be marginalized in the way that they are, while also understanding that the perception of them in media plays a major part in how other people treat them in society. What I'm talking about is more like this, and I think I did a pretty good job at this, using myself as an example. So I live in and grew up in Florida. I grew up in a not super small town, but kind of just outside of a big city. And my exposure to Black people, you know, I grew up in a suburb and all these different things. My exposure to minorities and especially Black people was that of one Black neighbor and the few Black people that I had growing up around me. Now, I'm talking about like my formative child years, right? So when I actually saw Black people, it was in media. For me, you know, I was watching a lot of cartoons and stuff at the time, so it was things like Cyborg and Teen Titans, Static Shock, great show by the way. Both of those are. You know, it was characters like these guys. It was Number 5 in Kids Next Door. It was all of these different characters and these different things. And like, you can think, oh, that's such a small thing. But my point on that is to say these characters, them existing and having that representation of, oh, this is what Black people are like, that is good and that is important when somebody like me who didn't grow up around real Black people, like, there are a lot of people where the only exposure they get to other groups of people, so to speak, minorities, are fiction, are entertainment. this is why it's also important when it comes to like LGBT representation and all these different things, right? I've only ever known a handful of trans people, and as I've gotten older, of course, I've gotten to know more and more. But for the longest time, it was kind of something that I didn't even really know existed because I just didn't. It wasn't until like I think Friends where the and I watched reruns of Friends back in like I binged the whole series when it came to Netflix. And I think it was like what's his name? Matt something. No, that's Matt LeBlanc. Chandler. Chandler's the character. His dad had like a trans father, I think, or I guess trans mother, or maybe they weren't even actually trans. They were just into cross dressing. I'm not even. I don't remember like exactly what the specifics on that was, but other than that, when I learned about when Caitlyn Jenner came out as being trans and all that, and everyone made a huge deal about that, that was like the first time that I like really saw and kind of understood a trans person, and not understood them because I didn't accept. I was transphobic. I'll be honest about that. I didn't accept it right away. It wasn't until for me personally, I had met another trans person, like specifically a trans man who was in the process of transitioning, and I learned like so much about him. He was just a regular cool dude to hang out with. He was part of my friend group, and he was just a really chill dude. Unfortunately, when I broke up with my girlfriend, who I had known him and the rest of our group kind of not through her, but through another friend I had in that group, we kind of stopped hanging out as well. But yeah, he was a really cool dude, and I never thought of him. I never thought like, oh, this is actually a woman, because like clearly it wasn't. He dressed like a dude. He looked like a dude. He talked like a dude. He was into things that guys more or less are in. He wasn't into like anything girly or anything. Like he was a dude. So I was able to have that representation later in life, and as I grew older, of course, I met more people of all sorts of different ethnic groups and stuff too, including Black people, Asian people, so on and so forth, right? My argument is not to say that we shouldn't deal with systemic issues, or that people shouldn't meet people outside of their own bubble, so to speak, but rather for people that are less likely to meet others outside their own bubble, the representation in media might be the only exposure they have, or at least the first exposure. And I would much rather somebody's first exposure be Cyborg or Number 5 rather than some stereotype, kind of thing. And that, my argument is more so about positive representation rather than just representation in general. Representation does matter, but like I said, even in that video, it's more important that we have positive representation rather than that we have representation at all, if that makes any sense.
I do concede, however, that in the meantime, there absolutely should be more stories told about minority populations across the globe. I mentioned this in my first video about representation, but diversifying the types of stories being told will only benefit everybody involved in the storytelling industry, giving previously disregarded groups the opportunity to be the leaders of these tales while telling stories that convey different ideals, principles, and messages from what we've seen before. And so this combination of actionable steps, in my opinion, adequately addresses your concern for focusing on how things actually are by actively making an effort to tell more minority-focused stories, which will inherently increase representation without any of the hypocrisy involved in the current arguments supporting it, while also moving us in the direction.
I don't do the hypocrisy though. I don't agree that like it's good when race swapping happens for white people, but it's bad when it happens to colored people. I completely, people of color, I completely disagree with that clip, I'm sure. But yeah.
Of how things should be by steadily stripping away the undue influence that media has over us. And I would argue that yours and others' unwillingness to consider this aspect of how things should be in your solutions is precisely why they continue to exacerbate current issues by perpetuating hypocrisies and weakening the integrity of the conversation, ultimately moving us further and further away from our agreed upon vision of how things should be. But for now, let's move on, because you did make an extremely valid point a little bit later.
And how it is the reality that it's not, to an extent, there is merit in the idea that if you see yourself represented a certain way, so to speak, you see people that look like you, act like you, whatever, represented in a certain way, it might encourage you to do things similar to those characters and make a positive change.
So here you are affirming my point, which I thank you for, because acknowledging the arguments of the other side is crucial to creating an environment for civil disagreement. And yeah, so the point that I was making and provided evidence for was that one of the main purposes of representation was to allow these represented groups to see themselves in these characters. And how this is problematic because it reinforces the idea that you need to see someone that resembles you in some capacity in order to relate to them. But as you rightfully point out,
this is only looking at one side. See, it's not just about, do you feel like you can relate to these characters? One of the big things that gets glossed over in this conversation is the importance of representation, not just for yourself, but for other people.
And you're 100% right. This is an aspect of the representation ideal that I didn't touch on in this video. In the video I made before this one, I did allude to this aspect of the purpose of representation. Although, to be fair, I didn't dive too deeply into this concept. And so
I do want to point this out real quick as well. It is true that, yes, he did, and I think that I mentioned it before, but maybe if I didn't, my apologies. But yes, he did absolutely do first okay, so I want to explain, first of all, how I even found this content. This video specifically popped up in my recommended. I started watching it. He mentioned in this video, and I'm pretty sure I talked about it when I covered the video too, that he also had these two videos. And I did watch this one, and this one, and this one, all in order. I found that the one, I was thinking of going over each of them, but what I found was that the only one I really wanted to go over and get into the specifics of was this one. So, yeah.
If you take a human being...
But I do highly recommend as well checking out these two as well, because they're very good.
And you force them to understand that they are different and that those differences will limit their endeavors in some way, shape, or form. And then you reinforce that difference every day of their lives with no chance of them escaping the reality of being different. Then it makes sense why that person might deem it valuable to have a powerful tool like media represent the thing that makes them different, so that they can be viewed and perceived in contexts that aren't typical to the ones that people generally associate with the trait that makes them different. So I showed this just to confirm.
It's not even, okay, but it's not even just about because they represent the thing that makes them different. It's more about, I guess in a way, it's kind of like desensitization, or I guess a type of exposure therapy. In that, like, okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the things that I liked and I watched growing up. I didn't think at the time when I was watching these shows that had black or any other type of any non-white character. I never looked at them and thought like, oh, like I probably noticed that their skin color was different, but to me it was the same as like hair color or eye color. And I do talk about in my own video even that I believe eventually we should get to the point that hair color, skin color, eye color, all of that is just as innocuous as the other. I do very much believe that should be a thing, but we're not there yet, unfortunately. But my argument is man, I remember I did this in the video itself too, where I just repeated myself a lot because there were a lot of things. It felt like he kept repeating himself, so I had to keep repeating myself, and it's fine. It's just how it flowed for both of us. But basically, again, it just comes down to, it's not about like representation for the sake of I mean, well, okay, in a way it is representation for the sake of representation, because it's like, you want to get to a point where everybody, like all these people, are treated equally. And like, yes, it's understood that there are some differences here and there. For example, you might notice that, say, the way to do something simple like get your hair cut as a white person, or really anybody that doesn't have more kind of overly curly. I think nappy or kinky, as it's also called, hair, where it's like black hair. Like there are specific black barbers who work on that hair, and stylists and stuff who work on that specific type of hair. Those, like, that stuff is fine and important, but I'm not talking about, like, it's, you can acknowledge the differences, and you should like acknowledge the differences and embrace them, while at the end of the day having that like representation and having everybody ultimately be not the same but equal. And I really do. A lot of people kind of look at the equality argument and they say, oh, liberals just want everybody to be the same or something like that. No, not the same, just equal. It's kind of like how when women say that they want gender equality, right? And you have men that simp over women. Well, the reason women aren't attracted to simps is because when they say they want equality, they mean they want equality. They want to be treated like actual human beings. When we talk about racial equality and all these other different equalities, we don't, like, we're not supposed to be coddling people and having this like, oh, well, you're a minority, so what you say goes. No, it's not that. It's more like, okay, you have this, which makes you different, but like, you're just like the rest of us. You're still human. You still have value. You're still, all these different things. And a lot of this too is about fighting against like currently existing racial stereotypes and stuff like that too. So there really is a lot that goes into this.
That I do agree with what Christian is saying here. Representation isn't only about allowing the affected groups to see themselves in these characters. It's also about portraying these representative characters in a positive light so that the wider audience can perceive them in contexts that were previously inconceivable.
And at the end of the day, to me, that is like the main argument. That is my main point with all of this.
Yeah, this is absolutely an aspect of this conversation that I completely glossed over in this video. However, this aspect of representation still does not address the aforementioned problem that you and I agree exists. The inclusion of this objective of representation into the discussion doesn't change the fact that the mission is still to use media's undue power to influence the masses into thinking differently about the affected groups. I understand that this undue power is now being used in what you would call a positive fashion, and I'll explain the reason that I emphasize you here in part 2 of this video. However, the underlying issue is that this power is still being utilized and not deconstructed entirely, which again is what we've agreed needs to happen. So let's actually use your personal experience as a case study for these solutions. At around the 7-minute mark, you say,
I naturally have reddish brownish hair. I'm naturally very pale, and I am often referred to, or was growing up especially referred to, as a ginger. Now, while growing up, I looked up to characters like, say, Drake Bell or John Stamos in his portrayal of Jesse Katsopoulos from Full House. While I looked up to characters like these and saw myself in characters like this is what the media portrayed gingers as. This kind of concept, and it didn't help the fact that I was, a little bit heavy set at the time too, but this concept of this kind of character, this caricature more or less of a ginger, is something that I was very much saddled with for much of my life throughout middle school and high school. While this in no way compares to people who are discriminated racially and such, this is an experience that I can share in which I can relate to this matter.
So just to be clear, he is in no way comparing the plight of being a redhead to the plight of belonging to a minority that used to be slaves in this country. So
I appreciate that he points that out and acknowledges that and says this here.
please don't misconstrue what he's saying here. He is only saying that he also used to be judged as an individual by the characteristics of the caricatures that resembled him in popular media. And if we go with your solution, which is positive representation, we essentially use the agreed upon undue power of the media to influence people into thinking that gingers can actually be perceived in a much wider range of contexts. And I do not deny that this will yield some benefits for some people, ones that it seems you personally experienced, as you expressed how you were able to relate to some of the more modern positive representations of gingers, like Cameron Monaghan and KJ Apa. And
That's not what I said. Just to be clear,
modern positive representations of gingers, like Cameron Monaghan and KJ.
Okay, so no, that was not my point. My point was to say that these are people in the media who are gingers, so to speak, especially more so KJ Apa, because it's this idea of like a ginger dude that like is seen as by women in the show that he's in and women in the like broader realm of like fans and stuff as a hot guy. Whereas I mean, I was saddled for years with the idea of like the redheaded stepchild. I had a teacher call me that at one point, and you know that's what a redhead is to a lot of people, a ginger, you know, all that stuff. And yeah, so those are that was more so my point. It wasn't so much that like, oh, I related to these guys. It was that had these kind of things existed when I was growing up, I don't think it would have been a problem for me and something that I was kind of made fun of to an extent for being a ginger. I don't think the whole like, oh, you have no soul kind of thing would have been a thing. You know, and stuff like that, or you know, again, the redheaded stepchild, all that stuff. I don't think that would have been a thing. And I really want to. It's so funny because like the problem here with me, with FIFA and I here, is that we really do just ultimately differ on the power of media. I very much my okay. Like it or not, the media has power. What people see in entertainment, what people read about, what music people listen to, how they see people portrayed in movies, television, video games, etc., is extremely important. And that's not going to change. It seems that he, in my opinion, for lack of a better way to phrase this, it seems that Fief has a very kind of naive view of what people can see from the media as far as like, so media literacy is a very important thing, absolutely, I 100% advocate for that, but it's not something you can necessarily expect everybody to have. It's a skill. It's a skill that people need to learn. It's a skill that I believe Fief has. I have it, and I think many people do. Many more analytical people especially do. But it's a skill that not many people have. Like the majority of people don't have the skill of media literacy, media analysis, so on and so forth, right? So for them, even though I talked about this when I talked about here, let me go back to when I did my response to my own deepfake video, and I explained. Oops, here, let me put it back on. There we go. When I responded to this, and I specifically stated, yeah, I was wrong. You know, and one of the reasons that I was wrong was because I believe that everybody would be able to do what I can, where they would be able to look at something that they know is fake and say, well, this is obviously fake, so what does it matter? But a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people really have a very difficult time separating fiction from reality, and it's sad, but it's true. It's what happens, and yeah, it's just the whole thing is that everything influences you, and media especially influences you. I mean, why do you think for so long people have tried to ban books like what, The Catcher in the Rye? Why was that such a big deal? Why were all the, like, people understand, the vast, like, majority of people understand that media influences people. Why do you think you have conservatives complaining about the way Nicki Minaj or someone twerks on a in a music video or something? Because, oh, little girls are watching that and they're gonna, try to implement that. Yeah, people emulate the media that they see. That's just how it is. I mean, unless you had like a class in school or something where you specifically taught people media literacy, and that just because you see something being done doesn't mean it's going to, like, means you have to do it or should do it or any, like, sure, but you know um it's just, it's kind of like how I really hate seeing, let me what the hell is happening? Oh, okay. It's kind of like how I really hate seeing, let me find the movie real quick, or show rather. I want to find, so there's a movie there's a show on Netflix called Sex. I'm not sure if it's actually supposed to be called like Sex Life or Sex Slash Life, whatever the case. Anyway, basically, throughout the whole thing, you have this woman who is married with children and all that, and she is married to this guy who's basically the perfect husband on paper, but she doesn't light his fire, if you get, or he doesn't light her fire, if you get what I mean. So she keeps fantasizing about her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend. I think his name's like Matt or something. I only saw like the end of the last episode because I saw this like whole outrage post someone had on Reddit where they were like, "This is bad," and we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, point is, the whole thing is she's, going back and forth and basically trying to decide, does she want to remain faithful to her husband, or does she want to, have an affair and possibly get like the spark back with this guy. And the thing is, my issue with this from a representation argument, because when I even see this, I think I hate the glorification of horrible behavior in media. Now, at the time when I saw this, there was only the first season, and it ends, spoiler alert, but it ends with her ultimately deciding, yeah, I'm going to betray my husband and go fuck this guy. She literally ends it by showing up at his penthouse and saying, I'm not gonna like commit to you, but I want you to fuck me, something like that, right? She says, yeah, and I hated that because that is negative representation. It's also similar where you see all of the really negative, like on TikTok and other places, but there's all the like, the very like MGTOW, oh, look at how horrible these women are kind of thing, right? You see that negative representation of women and you start to think, oh, that's what women are like. When no, that's just bad representation of women. This is bad representation of women and bad representation of a relationship. Now, I will say, now that the second season has been released, I might actually give it a shot because it looks like it's going to be more of a either cautionary tale, because she has this kind of thing where he leaves her and, I think he starts dating someone else, and she tries exploring with this guy. This is all from the trailer. She tries exploring with this guy, and it doesn't seem to last. So I think she's trying to do this whole. Now, look, I don't like they might be trying to spin this as some like, oh, woman empowerment thing, and there's nothing empowering or feminist or egalitarian or anything like that about infidelity. Infidelity is horrible. It's one of the worst things that you can do to another person, breaking their trust and hurting them in that way. It's awful. Of course, I'm completely supportive of, and may even want myself, things like open relationships and non-monogamy, monogamish, all that stuff. Like, that's all well and good. That's fine. But if you're committed to somebody and you're like, I'm only going to be with you, and then you cheat on them, like, that's awful. That's awful. And the glorification of this kind of thing is horrible. And that is another example, a non-racial example of why representation is important, because the representation of this being glorified could communicate to women that watch it, oh, it's good to have an affair, and it can communicate to men that watch it, oh, women are untrustworthy bitches, and a lot of people do think that way. A lot of men think that way about women, and there are a fair amount of women that think that way in general. There was that, where was that awful tweet where it was like, let me find, there was this like really terrible tweet. Ah, this is the one. Men, if DNA confirms the baby is not yours, it doesn't change the fact that you must take responsibility of the baby. Women go through a lot in marriages, and women deserve better. To which it got 491 likes. Now, to be fair, it got 2.562 quote tweets, so that is what we call a ratio. But yeah, it is really bad. Queen Vivian here, really bad. And if you see this kind of shit and you think this is how women are, this is how feminists are, this is all this shit, because this is the kind of stuff that I thought for a long time about, women and feminism and all that stuff, is like, oh, this is how, all of this is. It gives a really bad representation of women and of, equality and feminism and, all of these different things. And it's bad. It needs called out when this stuff happens, and the positive representation needs to occur in its place. Fresh and Fit do this all the time, by the way, with their the way that they'll put on really just vapid women who are like these, like look like, oh, the only thing they have to offer is looks. They don't have like anything else to offer. And Fresh and Fit will put forth this idea of like, this is how all women are. Like, they don't say it, right? But that's implicitly the message here. So representation is important in all aspects, not just racially. But anyway, moving on.
KJ Apa. And again, I'll explain.
Oh, and negative representation is damaging in all ways, not just racially.
Why I'm putting positive in quotations in part 2. But on the other hand, the solution I presented would discourage people from forming their opinions of real life individuals based off of media representations of those people in the first place, and would simultaneously contribute to creating the world that you and I agree should exist. Meaning that if this solution was in place, you would have never been compared to the gingers have souls meme, and you wouldn't need Cameron Monaghan and KJ Apa to be positive representations of your community to teach people and yourself what you could attain in life. And
I would, though, because if the only representation of gingers was negative, the vast majority of people who were only introduced to those people through that negative representation would think and treat other people negatively as well. If nothing else, they'd have an implicit bias. We all have it. I have it. Everybody has it, right?
Reason I believe
you can work to challenge and ultimately change those, but that's where we're starting here,
so strongly that this world is attainable is because I lived it. In the same video where I acknowledged this ulterior objective of representation, I explained how during my childhood, despite often being the only black kid in most contexts, my identity still wasn't reduced to being the black kid. I wasn't forced to take on the stereotypes, both positive and negative, that the media perpetuated about black people, because I was in a community of people that were able to divest those influences from their perceptions of me. For the most part, I wasn't forced to take on any black stereotypes until
I am not talking about anecdotal. I mean, okay, for myself, yes, I literally did use myself as an anecdote, but I'm not talking about what you personally experienced or what I personally. I'm talking about the broader, like, people in general. I mean, okay, you know what? Think about this. Think about the representation that we have of not racial people, but think about the representation we have of media, of British people. Or we have, what do you call it? Scottish or any other European. But let's look at this, right? So let me find. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay. Go with this one. All right, for the longest time, and still a lot of Americans, when we think of British people, we think of suave, sophisticated. We think of James Bond. We think of the Harry Potter characters. We think of all of these different characters that we've seen in media. And because of that, a lot of people, a lot of women are known to like men with British accents. A lot of people are known to give British people a bit of more of a pass and be willing to listen to what they have to say because they sound more sophisticated because of their accent. Different things like that. That's not to say that's a bad thing, but what that is to say is to call attention to the fact that we do this all the time. I have seen way more British people in media than I've ever seen in my real life. I know trans people in real life. I know black people and Asian people and so on and so forth. I don't really know many British people in real life. I don't think I've met many British people in real life. It just hasn't been my experience. So when I think of British people, well, actually, when I think of British people, I think of, the most exposure I really get to British people, especially these days, is, there's a few things. There's Fact Fiend, which is a really good channel. I highly recommend. They're incredible. And, as I've talked about many times before, Hellfire Comms, which is a British Let's Play channel. So I think about them and I think about Fact Fiend. And, with these, they're regular British people. They're not, overly sophisticated. They're just, regular people who happen to be British having conversations about things. But for me, if I never found those kind of people in the media that I consume, nor would I have run into them in real life, I would have always thought about British people as people like James Bond or, I don't know, Alfred Pennyworth or, the fucking super sophisticated, smart British. You know what I mean? Like the suave, debonair, all that shit, right? So anyway, this happens with everything, and you can argue, as he clearly is, throughout this video, you can argue and say, well, that's not the way it should be. That's not the way. Great, awesome. We can agree and be happy that we agree that isn't the way it should be. But that's the way it is. You can't rewire people's psychology and make them just think differently about media. That's just how it is. For the majority of people. He has good media literacy. I have good media literacy. He was in a community of people that have good media literacy. That's fantastic. But that does not equate or account for the broad amount of people that A, don't have very good media literacy, and B, don't have this exposure to other people, I don't with British people, or Scottish, or anything like that.
I got to high school. And yes, being forced to be the black kid definitely affected my image of myself and completely changed my entire mode of being. And I not only accepted my role as just another member of the black community, but I actively reinforced the notion. But that's a different story for a different video. But at least up until middle school, my coaches, my teachers, my teammates, and my friends never treated me as just another black kid. They treated me as an individual. And if posting these videos about representation has taught me anything, it's that at the very least, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people who already think and feel the same way about this issue and are able to divest media's influence from their perceptions and think of people as individuals and not as representations of their communities. And this only reinforces the notion that how things should be is actually a very attainable goal, despite the reality that you propose and that I agree with you on, that according to the way things actually are, most people don't think this way, at least according to the public discourse currently surrounding these issues. Yes, I agree with you that what I experienced isn't indicative of how most people think, but having lived in both worlds and having taken years to try to divest myself from media's influence over my perceptions of real world individuals, which by the way is 100% an ongoing process. I am in no way saying that I have achieved this goal. In any case, because of these things, I do stand by my belief that this is an achievable reality. And I am convinced that it would be extremely freeing for people if they didn't constantly have to act as ambassadors for what they are and were instead allowed to be who they are, regardless of their external features. And so in comparing these solutions, the positive representation angle absolutely does yield some benefits for some people, and
this isn't just a race thing. This happens with everything. I talked about in my video about how this affects, like, how for a long time, nerds, smart guys especially, and people with glasses and all this were the nerdy outcasts that nobody liked, especially couldn't have any success with women, and like that's how they were perceived in real life. The bully, jock, all these different things. Like, I get what he's saying, but it's just not reality. It just isn't. Like, if you want to get to that end goal of everybody being who they are rather than what they are, great. But positive representation is part of that end goal. It's like he wants to get to point B without going through point A first. You just can't do it.
It would be disingenuous to deny that. However, the difference between these solutions is that, as discussed, in your own words, positive representation actively disregards the how things should be aspect of the discussion, and in so doing, actively pushes us farther and farther away from this agreed upon ideal by perpetuating the hypocrisies that you and I agree are being propagated, e.g. the media's undue influence on our perceptions, the extremely problematic notion that you need to see someone who resembles you in order to relate to them, the rules for thee but not for me mentality, etc.
That's the only issue I have, by the way. The rules for me, but not for thee. That's it. Like, everything else is fine as far as representation goes. It's good. Like, it's a good thing.
Whereas in the solution that I've presented, which again isn't really mine per se, we simultaneously address how things actually are and move in the direction of how things should be. Again, according to you, me, and at the very least hundreds of thousands of other people. And again, with this solution, we will see an increase in diverse storytelling. But of course, it'll be due to a very different motivation, one that isn't inherently hypocritical and dangerous. So in my opinion, this is the crux of our disagreement, and I feel like I could probably leave things here. But again, this is an hour and 24-minute long video. And so there are some points made later on that I would like to address that don't necessarily tie in with the main discussion. And so as discussed, that is the end of part 1 of this video. And
Part 1 ends at 13 minutes and the next part is a half an hour. I love it.
We're now about to
I respect it.
Enter part 2, where I will basically just be looking at some individual statements and responding to those directly. Some of those statements still tie into the main discussion, but obviously there are some points that don't really have much to do with the larger discussion around representation. But anyway, with all that said, let's just get into part 2. Alright, so moving on, I wanted to discuss this point that Christian made about positive representation. This is why I was putting an emphasis on you and positive in part 1 of this video.
Okay, here's another example. People with glasses. Oh, there you go. I talked about it again. For the longest time, people with glasses were always depicted as these nerdy people and all these different things. So you had people in real life who would just like, you'd have women that wouldn't want to date guys with glasses. You'd have the typical nerd character being the ones with glasses, all these different things. Now, because of positive depiction of them in media, people who wear glasses are actually considered attractive. The appropriate depiction of people in media is extremely important, and more so the positive depiction is more so important rather than people just being represented at all. I would argue it would be better for these groups, for groups of people to not be represented at all, rather than to be represented negatively. The best thing is to represent them positively, but what I'm saying is it does more harm to have negative representation than to have no representation at all. I agree with him. And I think that that's the point that even Fief is missing here, unfortunately. That was the part. I did misspeak there when I said that he's missing it. But carry on. Though I do think he makes good points in general.
Okay, so first things first, I think the glasses example is valid. I push back a little, but only because in this case, and in almost all cases, positive representation is akin to any portrayal that results in that group having a wider audience find them physically attractive. And I think this only reinforces our society's obsession with physical attractiveness, which I could ultimately deem as harmful messaging. However, to be fair to him, this is the reality of the situation. And so by his and society's current metric, this could definitely be classified as positive representation.
Guys, oh my, people do this on the left too, and it's like people that are like trying to be overly progressive do this too, where they're like, we shouldn't care about people's appearance at all. It's like, no, like, you do. All right, everybody does. Like, oh my god, like I'm sorry, that's just like a small thing. Oh, it like enforces our obsession with people's looks. Yeah, like we got to play with the hand we're dealt, man. You know, we're born into this world. We live here for a short time. We can do what we can to change the rules, but in the meantime, you know, we got to play by them to an extent, at least.
Although, again, just as in part one of this video, I think that if we shifted our paradigms, this could easily be seen as negative. In any case, the first thing I want to address is the claim that this is a point that I'm missing. Although I don't really...
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I absolutely did misspeak there.
really see how that is valid since I directly acknowledged what Christian is talking about at the beginning of this video. It seems like the problem is that the minority communities in this country believe that for far too long, we have been represented in the media as archetypical, stereotypical characters.
What I meant in that statement, by the way, was that he's missing that in this specific statement he's making here, not like in general, but yeah, that was a misspeak on my end, 100%.
Caricatures of the types of people that actually exist within our community. The claim is that seeing ourselves constantly relegated to the side characters who never achieve the glory that the main characters achieve creates a negative feedback loop which discourages the people within these communities from ever even striving to achieve those heights. And so the push for representation is a push for these communities to see themselves as the heroes, the bosses, the love interests, etc. So that we can begin to understand that we are just as capable of achieving these heights as the heroes that we've typically seen on the big screen. I understand that Christian's video was originally recorded as a stream, and as such, it's very easy to miss or overlook certain things because streams are recorded live. And that
actually, fun fact, these are not recorded as streams. I do eventually want to start streaming when I've like built up a lot of an audience and everything, and I don't know if I'll ever stream on Twitch, but at least stream here on YouTube. I do want to do that at some point. But no, these are not recorded as streams. These are recorded in the format. You know, I've been very open about this, right? I base my format, the way that I set up everything in OBS, because I do use OBS to record. I base my format off of specifically the way that Vosh, Hassan, Xander Hall, Hunter Avalon, the way that they do their setups. Keffels, I think, does the same thing. But I specifically, of course, I put my own spin to it. I have a green screen, you know, all this stuff, right? But I don't actually record. I mean, well, I record live because like I'm live, like in. I'm not streaming. Yeah, I'm not streaming. This is all pre-recorded.
That adds a whole other pressure-filled dynamic to making videos, as opposed to someone like me who writes out an entire script beforehand. But in any case, I did just want to clarify that the point that he's making about positive...
Yeah, I tried that, by the way. I can't do scripts. I tried writing scripts and like putting my content out that way. I couldn't do it. I work much better in like a stream of consciousness kind of way of doing stuff. I remember I did a paper in like senior English 4 honors, I think I was in, and we just wrote a stream of conscious, and my teacher came back and was like, where was that all year? I was like, I don't know, man. I just wrote. That's what you told me to do, so I just did it, you know? Like, I can do that. I just can't... Yeah, script and shit don't work for me. Funny, considering I wanted to be an actor. I can do those kind of scripts, but not this shit.
And negative representation was originally addressed. The second and most important aspect of this claim that I wanted to address, and the reason that I emphasized you and positive when speaking about positive representation in part one, is the discussion around what actually is positive representation and what is negative representation. Recently, a black woman by the name of Courtney Michelle posted a TikTok about how the representation in Black Panther Wakanda Forever was inadequate. And she doesn't believe that the movie appropriately represented Black Panther.
I am Courtney Michelle Black Panther. Let me see if we can find that. Censored her? Oh, here. This must be it. What? YouTuber Courtney Michelle reports TikTok censored her video criticizing Black Panther Wakanda as Feminist propaganda. Wait, that's not saying it's inadequate. That's it. Can I find the actual Here, see if we can find the actual video. Is this it? It's a no to Wakanda Forever. Hashtag woman. Oh my god.
So I just left seeing Wakanda Forever, and I'm pissed. I am pissed because if Pushing an Agenda was a movie, this would be in the forefront of that. This was Woman King on steroids. If you think that I'm gonna believe 100-pound black woman soaking wet is just an almighty warrior and can just body dudes like it's no tomorrow, come on. Like, instead of Wakanda, it should have been called Where Are the Men? Because they was not there, they were not present, and the ones that was there was weak. But all the women that was in the movie was just brolic, built, strong Hercules. What is this saying to us? Perpetuating the idea of the strong black woman and a subservient black effeminate man. I just think it's disgusting. I'm completely upset by the movie. And
oh my god.
Man, if this Kyrie Irving didn't teach me anything, it's when you put your life career in the hands of other people that don't look like you, then they can make you do whatever they want you to do. And this movie does not represent what African culture is. It doesn't represent what our culture needs to be. So,
okay.
No, I'm good.
So her argument isn't to say, like, her argument is that it's too focused on women. You know, this is the same argument that the conservatives make all the time, where they say, like, oh, Bruce Banner was emasculated in She-Hulk, and she got this whole speech about how, you know, it's so woke and blah, 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 all these. It's talked about this before. Conservatives and reactionaries do not know comics. Is it? I forget how to spell her name. Is it Shuri? Shuri? Okay. So, I had a conversation about this with one of my best friends when the movie was being promoted, where he said, well, I don't really like that they went and had to make a woman the queen of Wakanda now that Chadwick Boseman passed away. I feel like that was disrespectful. I pointed out to him, that's what happens in the comics. Specifically, Shuri is the younger sister of T'Challa and most recently a queen. As such, she has been the ruler of Wakanda, an African nation known to be one of the most technologically advanced civilizations on Earth. She has returned from, forgive my pronunciation here, Dahlia, the Plane of Memory, with a new set of abilities to aid her brother in ruling Wakanda. Most recently Queen, has been the ruler of Wakanda. This is what happens. This is just like how, like, so many of these things have happened where basically the mantle has been passed down from one character to another. This is like people getting angry at, oh, Captain America's black now. Yeah, he passed down the mantle. Like, that does happen. That happens with these legacy superheroes all the time. And if we want to talk about, oh, these buff women, well, again, I mean, they're not super buff here, but in the comics, yeah, there are a bunch of women being led by her. Like, what is the issue here? The issue is, well, let me find the, or wait. This one. Two sexes, male and female, male and political, 2 sexualities, straight and political, 2 races, white and political. Perfectly fine if we have a white person, but if they're anything else, it's got to be political. Perfectly fine to have straight people in media, but if it's anything else, it's political. Perfectly fine to have white. Wait, what? Why did we go back? Oh, and then white and political. Yeah. So again, that's what she did here. Male and political. Oh, this is emasculating black men. What the fuck? No. This is another character's story that has nothing to do with him. And to be fair, I haven't actually seen it yet. But from what I've heard, they gave Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther a really good funeral ceremony send-off as well. So, do you not want these things to stay true to the comics, to the source material? I do. I want them to stay as true as possible. We're not going over this whole article here, but I just want to. Oh. You know, we're gonna keep that one actually. We don't really need these right now.
Wakanda Forever was inadequate. And she doesn't believe that the movie appropriately represented her as a black woman or African culture in general.
Yeah, that's not what she said. I'm sorry. I don't want to say he's being disingenuous here because I don't know, and I really do want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that is literally not what she said in her video.
But all the women that was in the movie was...
Oh, okay. I didn't realize he played it.
Just brolic, built, strong Hercules. What is this saying to us? And this movie does not represent what African culture is. It's just...
Okay, by the way, we should actually look at that too, because I did look at the comic panel, but let's actually look at Wakanda Forever Tribe? I don't know how to... Warriors? Here, Warriors. First of all, they don't look any different than they did in the movie with Chadwick Boseman, the first Black Panther, nor do they look any different when they were in Infinity War. This is how they were in the movies. What is your issue here? Look at them. They're like, okay, cool. What is your... All right.
Doesn't represent what our culture needs.
I know what the issue is. This is the issue.
To be. So, I'm good on Wakanda.
Now, full disclosure, I haven't seen this movie. And based off of her video,
Hey, he hasn't seen it either. That's funny.
I don't personally believe that I would agree with her perspectives, even if I had.
What up, Editor Fief here. So a couple of days after I recorded this, I did end up watching Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and no, I did not enjoy it. However, I still don't necessarily agree with Courtney Michelle's perspective here. Regardless, as I'm about to indicate, whether I agree with her or not isn't really the point. But anyway, I just wanted this to be as up to date as possible, so now that that's out of the way, let's just get back to the video.
Interesting. I know a lot of people said they really didn't enjoy Miss Marvel, or not Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel either. I loved her. I thought it was a great movie.
However, the fact remains that she is a black woman who doesn't believe that the black representation was in any way positive. And for this opinion, her video was deleted from TikTok. And so the question becomes, whose representation actually matters? What is positive to you may be negative to someone else.
Wait. We just saw it. It's still on TikTok. What are you talking, was that not from her channel? Hang on a minute. Where is it? Ah, fuck, hang on. Is this not from her thing?
Can you point out your former
my.
teachers the court?
The hell was that? Oh, here was it. This is her channel, or her whatever you call it for TikTok.
So
What are you talking? This is her thing. Oh, it was deleted. TikTok censored it. No, they didn't. It's right fucking. Wait, can you see it on No, you can't. Here, I'll scroll down so you should be able to see it, right? It's right here. I am Courtney Michelle. That it wasn't removed. What are you talking about? Oh my god! Again, I don't want to like. We'll get to that. I don't want to just assume he's being disingenuous, but like, okay.
I've now made 2 videos deconstructing past female characters and arguing that they were strong, even though they weren't physically imposing figures fighting off bad guys.
Okay. I fucking love Spider-Man, and I love the Sam Raimi films. Mary Jane was not a good character in those films. All she did was, if she wasn't like being captured and like crying about shit, she was lying to other people. I mean, in the first movie, she's with Harry and she's being all with Peter, like, oh, maybe I could love you. And then in the second movie, she's engaged and she's like, oh, maybe I want to be with you instead, Peter. And then in the third movie, she's with Peter, and yet she's being with Harry, like almost cheating with him. It's like, what the, come on, like, you know. And then of course all the other moments, she really is just like the prize for Spider-Man. That's all she is. She really is like the epitome of like the trophy woman, or the putting her on a pedestal as just a person to save. That's all she is in those movies. Yeah, really sad.
And taking down supervillains. And to my surprise, I received a plethora of comments from women explaining how the modern strong female character doesn't represent them and is actively
Should we go through these? Should we look at these?
Fighting off bad guys and taking down supervillains. And to my surprise,
okay, I'm okay. You know what though? No, okay. I
received a plethora.
Almost never comment on YouTube videos, but I love the videos so much. I really appreciate the passion and tones. Yada yada yada. As a stay-at-home mom, I often hear how weak stay-at-home mothers are because we live an old-fashioned and yeah, no, I completely agree with her. Yeah, no, the people that are progressive who push this idea that like, well, if you are a stay-at-home mom, then that's bad and anti-feminist and patriarchy, blah 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 blah, buzzwords. No, that like if you are more old-fashioned, if you want to have that lifestyle, fine. And I don't mean that in the way conservatives use when they call gay a lifestyle. You know what I mean? If they want to actually live their life in that way, that's fine. The important part is that it's not being shoved on people who don't want to live their life that way. It's like how I don't want children, ever, but I'm not going to like talk bad about people that do want children. You know what I mean? It's yeah.
Of comments from women explaining how the modern strong
stereotypical strong female character isn't really a woman I really relate to. People say strong female character. What they really mean is a manly woman, and that isn't bad. It's kind of a problem. Is Lara Croft a manly woman? Is Captain Marvel a manly? Is Storm from the X-Men a manly woman? Is Oh, right. What is the here? We'll go with this one. Well, this is like a more up-res version, but I want to find the reboot. Whoops. No. Oh, 2013. Is this a manly woman? Let me see if I can find. Like, really? You're gonna look at this and tell me that's a manly woman? Guys, I love women, and I love the female form in general, and yeah, definitely not manly. Would 100%, like, in a heartbeat. Really? Well, this is fan art, but like, or Not fan art. I just want Samus Aran. Okay, here in Smash. Is this manly? Really? Is it like Samus is a very strong female character. These are video game characters, mind you, but still, Samus is a very strong female character. So is Lara. Are these manly? They look like pretty hot women to me. I mean, she's got like a ton of like blood and shit on her, but like, you know, we can find a good picture of her where she doesn't have that. I think this is her in-game model. No. I mean, honestly, even with all like the dirt and shit on her and like the blood and stuff, yeah. You know, my response to Tomb Raider and Samus Aran is wood, 100%. Yeah, This is manly, really? All right, okay, cool. This is manly, sure. Yeah, strong female characters are just manly. Sure, they are. Yeah.
Female character doesn't represent them.
What I personally believe to be the problem with the modern strong female character is that the notion that being feminine is being weak. I agree that is a bad thing. Being feminine is not weak. Femininity and masculinity can and should exist within each other, but anyway, has gotten even stronger lately for some reason. So now female characters who are feminine and actually show strength through actions and not through power, like Belle, from Beauty and the Beast, are considered weak and bad role models, while the only good, strong female characters are the ones that display the traditional masculine image of strength, physical strength. I mean, I really liked Jasmine in the live-action Aladdin. That was like, I really liked what they did with her character there. I liked, I just showed Lara Croft and Samus Aran. Who were some other... Here, let's do... I just started watching this show today, actually. The Imperfect, so a show streaming on Netflix. These two characters are women, you might notice. They're badasses. They're very attractive. What's the issue? Like, they're not manly. They're very like, they're feminine enough to still be like, you know, hot as a man who likes women, likes femininity. Like, I don't see again, wood. You know, I don't see the issue here. I really don't. Again, this is it.
And is actively harmful because it conveys the message that...
Thank you. I love Belle from childhood. Always thought that. So it's gonna be the same shit, right? Old movie is weird, not right. Why women need to be like a Hulk? They don't. Actually, why anyone needs to be someone masculine to be strong? There's an emotional strength. Yeah, but like, the character of She-Hulk isn't strong because she's physically strong and got the Hulk gene. What makes She-Hulk such a good character is her wit and her charm and all these different things. And yeah, she's strong as well, but like, she can maintain her Hulk form and still be a lawyer, for starters.
That in order for women to be strong, they essentially need to be...
Oh my god. As a woman, I feel insulted by the current portrayal of strong female women that absolutely rejects and denies the idea of feminine strength. There's this idea of the difference between feminine and masculine strength, and of course that men and women can have both within them combined. And that is a very clear difference between the physical strength boldness, willpower, clarity, and focus that are typically associated with masculine energy, and the caring, nurturing, grace, emotional strength, and loving endurance that are more likely to be associated with feminine energy. Modern social media. Okay, so here's the issue with this too, right? What you're essentially saying is women can't be depicted in this way, and men can't be depicted in this way. That's a problem. Like, there's a reason why it's seen as so weird, or men will get condescending remarks if they're watching their own child, like, oh, are you babysitting today? No, I'm being a fucking father. What are you, like, what? But it's so ingrained into a lot of people's culture and idea that a man who does anything feminine, like caring after their own child, it's like that's not their role. It's like, what the fuck are you on about? Of course it's their role. What? Modern media seem to have decided that the latter is simply not real strength and started to portray those feminine traits. What is this media that they're seeing? Where are they? Where is this that they are only seeing? Only female character depicts traits that have come to see as toxic masculinity. Then she's perceived to be a strong woman. That's not true at all. Like, there are tons of like, even in recent years, if we want to talk superheroes and like movies, like superheroes in movies, Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, like, these are good. What are they? I mean, yeah, they are physically strong too, but like, what?
Behave like men. And so I ask again, whose representation matters? Because as these examples demonstrate,
But the problem is their representation of the more like feminine women isn't going anywhere. Like, Geeks and Gamers. Let me see. I was gonna respond to the video originally, but I don't know if I'm going to now. But let me see if I can find. Yeah, Geeks and Gamers got super mad because Princess Peach looks like this, and she's like gonna be a bit of a badass fighter in the new Mario movie. Which, like, okay, cool. Why is that a bad thing? Peach Skywalker, comparing her to like Rey, I think. I just like, I don't know, man. Are you really gonna look at this and say, "Oh, that's not feminine"? Like, that's not. I don't know. It's wild. It's absolutely wild to me. So you ask, like, oh, whose positive representation matters? Whose opinion matters here? The one that benefits the most amount of people. We're not removing femininity or anything like that. We're not removing white people. We're not removing any of that. It's inclusion, not exclusion. Not flipping the script, as I've talked about before, and we'll get to that as well. How long have we gone on so far with this video? I really... Oh god, this is going to be... I was right, like I said, it's going to be a lot longer than the other video.
one person's positive representation is another person's negative representation. And this is an...
Yeah, I don't care. The positive representation is the one that actually positively benefits the most, like, you know, benefits the most amount of people. That's what the positive representation is. This is like when people say... No, never mind. I can't think of a... It's the same concept.
Aspect of this discussion that I believe many who support the positive representation solution are either intentionally neglecting or simply haven't considered. Because
no, you're doing the both sides thing. And he does this later too, where he says, I'm not political. We'll get to that. But, like, you're doing the both sides thing. Well, both sides have good points. No, not when one side is saying we need more inclusivity and that's a good thing, and then the other side is saying, no, we don't really need inclusivity. Like, let me find the... I'm going to see if I can find... Let me see here. Okay, I can't find it. But okay, so I talked about a lot of this stuff too when I went over the Twitter post where they were like, look at these blonde women. You're never going to see anything like this again. There was one of the things where somebody put Oh my god. Maybe this would be it. We have enough. The white race, the most diverse race ever. Preserve and appreciate our... Okay. This is some creepy white race, master race bullshit. Now, I will say, I've thought about this too. About the reality that, yeah, white people do have all of the different, like... So this right here. White, you know, gray eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, or dark brown eyes, lighter brown eyes, maybe hazel, I'm not sure. Platinum blonde, blonde, strawberry blonde, red, and brown versus diversity as they're showing here. Like, I get it. I understand that point. But the thing is, this, in all of its forms, even though, yes, it is more diverse, like on the color spectrum, this has been a lot more represented in media than this. And this is some, like, fucking bullshit, you know, again, like, you know, they're trying to replace us kind of shit. Anyway, so, yeah, this is... I haven't even seen that one before. That's wild. But no, I was trying to find one. It had this... It was this meme of, like, a bunch of women who, like, one had blonde hair, one had red hair, one had brown hair, and it said, "We have enough diversity." Some shit like that. It was... Yeah, it's fucked. Again, this is it. Like... Whoops.
They believe that their idea of positive representation is the idea of positive representation.
It is the idea of positive representation. Yes, I'm sorry, but it is. Like, it is. It just is. Like,
And everybody who disagrees with their perspective needs to be silenced. Like,
not silenced. Not... This is why I'm really... I don't want to say he's being disingenuous, but, like, this is the, like, reactionary culture war conservative bullshit, or enlightened centrist, because again, he claims to not be political. We'll get to that. But, okay.
like Courtney Michelle was. And so this is why I was
She
putting
wasn't silenced. She literally, her video is still on TikTok. Like,
air quotes around positive, because in many instances, positive is subjective. In any case, I've already spent way too much time on this topic, so we're going to keep it moving because there is still a lot to get to.
no, positive is not suggestive. Subjective. Positive is, again, it's like... There are many, 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 many people, not just black people, but many people in general, who have not felt positively represented in media. And what that means is not a stereotype, not, you know, anything like, not a caricature, but just a person who happens to be that thing. We have plenty of things where, both as white people and black people, but people in general, especially as white people, where the fact that they are white, the fact that doesn't play into their character at all. It's not something that's even mentioned, because for many people, white is considered the default. I thought for a long time that, to me, it was considered the default because I'm white. But now I understand, no, for a lot of people, white is the default because that's how it's portrayed in society at large. And again, this. Anything else is political.
And to me, this argument just sounds like we're basically seeking to use this undue power for our own good, instead of addressing the root cause and stripping this tool of its power in the first place. Remember?
Okay, I think this comes to a fundamental misunderstanding of this whole concept with media and power and all this stuff in general. If power exists, if systems must exist in a way then they should be for the benefit of people. We can argue all day long that, oh, it shouldn't be this way, it shouldn't be that way, yet whatever. The reality is, the world that you consume through media, be that fictional or otherwise, is just as real to many people as the world out. There are many people, I would say less so now, but there are many people, especially in like the rural South, for example, where their only real exposure to minorities, racial, sexual, anything, is media.
Okay, so you said that the world that people consume through media is just as real to them as the actual real world, and that if power must exist, then it must be used to the benefit of the people, right? And you go on to say that this is a fundamental misunderstanding that I hold, but just as with the last claim that was made alleging that I was missing something, I don't really see any indications in your arguments that I've misunderstood this concept. Only this declaration that I have.
I didn't mean he misunderstood. I was talking about it as if we were already talking with each other. I meant a fundamental disagreement, not misunderstanding. So again, I misspoke.
Without any real evidence supporting it. Again, throughout my last two videos, and even in this one, I have acknowledged this reality and factored it into the solution that I've presented. In my opinion, the fundamental misunderstanding on display here is the acknowledgement of the underlying problem only to present a solution that actively disregards it. You acknowledge that the media holds undue influence over our lives. You acknowledge that our actual realities are shaped by that undue influence. And you acknowledge that it should not be this
I don't agree that it's undue. It just is.
way. But then you present a solution that ignores these acknowledgments and seeks to use that undue power to your own benefit, while simultaneously condemning this power. In any case, after this next clip, we're going to circle back around to that "if power must exist" quote. I feel like we need to destroy this power and not try to use it for ourselves. Because when you don't address the root cause of an issue and you only attack the symptoms, you tend to do more harm than good, and you might actually end up exacerbating already existing issues while allowing the real problem to grow and fester. And
I agree with this, but the problem is the Lord of the Rings and anything else where you're destroying something at the source by literally physically destroying it. That's fine for something that's physical, like the ring in the Lord of the Rings. But in real life, when you have this systemic and cultural issue, you don't destroy it by just like blowing up a machine that controls all the data or something. You destroy it by changing the minds of people. And that's what the point of the positive representation is. And to be clear, when I talk about changing the minds, and I'm talking about, through that representation and different things, I'm not talking about rewiring people's psychology so they magically think different about the media they consume in general. Like, that's like a pipe dream.
kind of touched on some.
This is us destroying it.
Okay, so no, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna push back vehemently on this point. Because by your own words, this is definitively not you destroying this power. This is you using it. You just said, if power must exist, then it must be used to the benefit of the people. Which is you directly acknowledging that, yes, this power exists, a power which, again, you have already condemned, and acquiescing to the notion that since it already exists, all we can do is use it to help the people. So continuing with the Lord of the Rings analogy, you've taken the ring, aka this condemnable power, you've concluded that it must exist without earnestly exploring any viable solutions to destroy it, which you've then taken to mean that the only available option to us is to use it for ourselves. So I just want to be very clear here that no, this is not you attempting to destroy this power. Again, by your own rhetoric, this is you trying to take this power and use it, which was one of the main points of my original video. And of course, I understand that there's no racism machine that we can just blow up and end all of this discrimination. But that doesn't inherently mean that there are no avenues available to us to destroy this power. Again,
No. Not destroy the power. Not just, okay. How do I... okay. Have you ever seen those, like... So he talks about Lord of the Rings, but what I imagine this as is kind of like, okay, let's take Avatar: The Last Airbender, for example. There's an episode in season 3 where the gang is blowing up a factory that is polluting this little village that they go to. It's polluting it. They need to go in, blow it up, day is saved, right? What I'm saying is that this is not a physical thing that we can go in and just destroy and then the pollution stops. What we have to do in order to destroy it is my, I guess, ultimate thing is to say that it can't be destroyed. It's something that, because it's a, you know, it's like a, again, it's not a physical thing, it's a concept. It can't be destroyed. It can only be kind of, I guess, like I said, retooled, right? It can only be changed in a way to, like I said, work to benefit society rather than hurt it. But when I'm talking about destroying the negative power. I'm not talking about destroying like the machine itself. There's no way to destroy the media. I mean, the media machine. What would you do? Just like stop all media in general? Like that's not what I'm talking about here. He's right though. He vehemently disagrees. I vehemently disagree with him too. That's great. We completely disagree. He thinks that it can and should be destroyed. I don't.
And
I think it needs to be embraced and channeled properly.
the solution that I presented in no way falls victim to that illusion. It acknowledges that power and seeks to, as you put it, change the minds of the people who don't believe that this power can be destroyed in the first place. But again, I've said way too much here, so let's just get to the next point. There's just a sentiment that more is better, even though percentage-wise, Hollywood already pretty much matches up with the real-world demographics, at least for black and white people. And yet the calls for more representation ensue.
All right, I'm going to point out something here. This is getting on my nerves a little bit. Have you ever tried to search for something on Netflix or anything else? Comic books, video game characters, musical artists, anything. And you're trying to find specifically Black people, Latin people, some other race that isn't white. It's very easy, because, and I did this, and I thought this and bought into this for a long time. When you are either not paying attention or you're so focused on only the white people that you notice when the minorities come in, oh, this is some like virtue signaling. And sometimes it is, and we'll get to that. Do you know how hard it is to actually find positive representation of people of color? The reality is, the representation isn't there.
Okay.
All right. This time I think he is being disingenuous, because I have to get to my point, what I was talking about. I have to show you this in its full context, because I don't even remember the full context, what I was talking about. Let me find... All right, we're going to look at my actual video here. There. Oh, shit! I got it right exactly where I needed to. That's awesome. For the most part. Now, we'll get into it as we go into this video here. As far as, you know, race-swapping characters go, we'll get into that and my thoughts on that in a moment here. But it is important to have positive representation of people of color in general. And the reality is that as much as, let's be real, conservatives want to cry about how it's everywhere, it really isn't. It's actually very difficult to find, even if you're looking for it. It's just that when you're not looking for it and or you don't want it, this sticks out a lot more. But if you're trying to find it, that's tough. Trying to find something where the white characters is the main lead. You want to find hottest, you know, hottest fictional characters, and you want to find, you know, white women, white men, white anything. You can do that easy. Strongest, you know, characters, most influential, any of this, right? White is the predominant thing in media, which is funny, by the way, because across the world, white isn't even like, white isn't the minority. Like, white people are the, white isn't the majority. White is the minority across the world. But that's a whole other thing. Yeah, so I just wanted to play that full thing in its full context.
So the reason I brought up statistics is because the discussion around representation isn't only concerned with bringing subjectively positive representation into the media, but also seeks to legitimize the claim that there needs to be more representation in the media. And in that sense, you are inadvertently proving my point here. Because when you say the reality is that the representation isn't there, the actual reality
For the most part, as I continue to explain.
Is that this is only a reflection of your own personal experience. Because statistically speaking, black people are equally represented in Hollywood and are actually overrepresented on TV. So when people clamor for more representation, this is the question I ask. What does more mean? Will we be satisfied when Christian Verstappen can go on Netflix and see a comparable number of black female protagonists to white male protagonists? Again,
That was not the point. And if you see as I just showed you, you see my actual video on it, you can tell that isn't the point.
don't know the answer to this question, and I'm not even saying that I would inherently be upset if we did occupy the same amount of space. So please don't misunderstand my intent behind asking this question. All I'm saying is that as long as there is no definitive objective from this movement, then as I said in my first video on representation, this goal only exists subjectively in the minds of those who seek more of it, as you just confirmed. And so I think that it's fair to question what the objective end goal is here. When we talk about more, what does more mean? Additionally, I'm not sure if you're referring to me specifically or speaking more generally, but just to clarify, I never indicate that I immediately assume virtue signaling whenever I see a new story with a minority playing the lead role, because I don't. And on that note,
and the reality is that as much as, let's be real, conservatives want to cry about how it's everywhere, it really isn't. It's actually very difficult to find, even if you're looking for it. It's just that when you're not looking for it and or you don't want it, this sticks out.
Again, I'm not sure if you're talking about me specifically or just speaking generally here, but I just want to clarify
I am speaking generally.
that I do not identify as a conservative, just as I do not identify as a liberal or a centrist or any of these other labels. The nature of our discourse makes it acceptable for people to assume that if someone takes a stance opposite to your own, then that must mean that they play for the other team. But I find this method of discussion to be entirely counterproductive. In my opinion, these blanket statements only serve to deepen the divide and push people further into the extremes. There are countless videos of people blaming
Oh my god, he's doing it! Oh no, oh no! Jesus fuck, okay. Alright, okay, a few things. First of all, my channel and the things that I talk about, everything really that I deal with, is primarily social and political. That's the first thing. Second thing, I learned the hard way throughout 2020 that everything is political. Everything that you do, especially publicly, is political. I don't care if you don't like it, if you live in a society where you interact with other people, everything is political. And yes, if you are not on the right side, you are on the wrong side. If you're not on the right side of history, you're on the wrong side of history. How many people, and we are coming to this point where we are, and look, we're not even talking about like trans people and all that stuff, but we are coming to a point where the right is getting more and more genocidal with their language about sexual minorities, right? About trans people, LGBTQ people in general. How many people do you think in places like Nazi Germany in the 30s, and even before then, were sitting on the sidelines, were like, I don't really agree with Hitler, but I don't know, these other things, this is just too far, I don't really want to take sides here, I don't really, and you can say that makes me the bad guy, but I don't really, fall anywhere here. No. This is why I can't tell if he's being disingenuous. He might not be. He might actually be apolitical, but the reality is there's no such thing as apolitical. Like, I'm sorry, there just isn't. The only way you can be apolitical is if you're not existing in a society that has politics. That's it. Like, you are a political vehicle of some sort or another. And also, there's a reason that there's this general understanding, especially on the left, that apolitical people and centrists, although he doesn't call himself a centrist, that's essentially where he would fall here, often, if not always, end up serving the right, they end up serving the right. And come on, dude, we're gonna do the whole, The why I left the left people? Fucking really?
This very mentality for why they left the left, or why they had to abandon the Republican Party, demonstrating that this ideological purism is only exacerbating the issue. I know this was a bit of a...
No, okay. I completely disagree with the purity testing woke schools that say, like, if you buy Hogwarts Legacy, you're transphobic, or if you support anything problematic or whatever, then you're a bigot or anything, you know? I completely disagree with that. But when you're making a statement and talking about these kind of things, and you're arguing essentially with this idea that, you know, if anything, we actually have too much representation of minorities, we should have less, you're serving the interests of the right, even if you yourself believe that you are apolitical.
Side tangent, but I really felt the need to address this because of the wider implications. But anyway, on to the next clip. There's also the issue of creating stories and characters.
This is, again, why we don't do identity politics as well, because it's very easy for someone, especially that is apolitical, to look at this and say, well, here's a white man arguing for more representation. Here's a black man saying that we don't actually need more representation. Clearly, we should listen to the black man because he's the one who's, you know, actually POC, whereas the white man isn't. Doesn't fucking matter.
Specifically for individual groups and demographics, and how that inherently excludes everybody who doesn't fall into your target audience and discourages them from engaging with your story, resulting in...
So, I get what he's saying, but here's what I'm going to say. I don't think if you take something like, we'll go back to She's Gotta Have It, or Family Matters, or Everybody Hates Chris, or any of these things where black people are the primary focus, for example, or Miss Marvel, where they showed off a lot of culture from, I'm gonna butcher this, some kind of Islam, if I am getting that correct. I don't remember, I apologize. But in any case, what you are doing is you are introducing people like myself who would otherwise be unfamiliar with that stuff. You're introducing us to a whole new world, a whole new culture, a whole new type of people.
Okay, so I think that there may be a bit of a misunderstanding here. I'm not saying that any story featuring black or non-white characters will make it hard for white people to relate to them. I'm specifically talking about representation characters, aka characters created for the explicit purpose of representing a specific demographic, like the black version of Batwoman and Ironheart. The point I'm making is that once you declare that
Wait.
demographic, like the black version of Batwoman and Ironheart.
But these are new. Okay, I don't know about the black version of Batwoman, which she a cutie. But the Ironheart, this is a new character in the comics. Like, not new, super new anymore. Well, no, actually it was the Civil War, the Marvel Civil War, which was like 2006, 2007, which led into the wonderful events of Spider-Man One More Day. We don't talk about that, though. We don't talk about that. Anyway, yeah, this is a new character. I can't speak for the Black Batwoman, though.
Ironheart. The point I'm making is that once you declare that this character is for these people, inherent in that statement is the exclusion of everybody who doesn't fit that description. Family Matters and Everybody Hates Chris were definitively not made with that intent. So yeah, I hope that clears things.
But if those shows were made to... Okay. I'm a white dude who grew up in the suburbs. I didn't know what the fuck the projects or stuff like that was. I first heard of that terminology and stuff because of Everybody Hates Chris. That stuff is there and is relatable to an audience that is more familiar with that content. Same thing with, like... There was an episode in Family Matters where they completely tackled police brutality. Not as well, because they kind of did the whole few bad apples kind of thing, rather than talk about like how it's systemically an issue and all these different things. But they talked about it, at least a little bit, and introduced me to even that concept. You could look at these things and say that that's not for white people per se, as in it's not things that we inherently understand right away. But by that logic, are you going to take something like Full House on the opposite side of the spectrum, which is extremely white, and say that that's not for black people or for any other, minority, whether they be racial, sexual, anything like that? No, like, that's ridiculous. You can make stuff with a kind of certain demographic in mind and still make it appeal broadly speaking. You know what I mean? Which is, I would argue, what those shows did.
Things up. And those stories flopping.
But I do agree as well that the phrasing of something like, oh, like sit down, white people, this isn't for you. Like, that's dumb. Yeah.
Getting canceled because they didn't have enough support. And lastly,
all I can say about this, and you know what, actually, so I don't know anything about Batwoman season 4, but I can tell you, by the way, a black Batwoman was not the issue with Batwoman. The issue with the Batwoman TV series was the preaching.
I need you to fix his suit.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits a woman.
Now, I don't know, it just feels very preachy. It feels like, bro, come on, man. I want to say that you're not being disingenuous and you're going to do this shit to me? Here's the full clip. Cassandra context, a ton of people immediately. Trailer, this turned myself and a ton of people have the character Kate Kane. Is this right here in the trailer? This alright, we're just gonna the preaching. This right here in the trailer, this turned myself and a ton of people off of it, like, immediately. So, to give context, you have the character.
Oh, okay.
Reason. Remember, introduced. Like their content. Why Batwoman flopped. Let's see. This was the issue right here.
When it fits a woman.
Now, to be charitable about that line, it will be when it fits a woman. First of all, it should have just been it will be when you make it fit me or when it fits me or something like that. That would have been better. Because what a lot of people, myself included, took that to mean is she's just, I don't know, it just feels very preachy. It feels like, it feels like that very preachy, woke scoldy type of feminism and not really gender equality, but almost a flipping of the scripts kind of thing. And it's very, very cringy. And we'll get to this more later here. I don't know what the hell just happened to the... We'll get to the virtue signal-y stuff in a bit, because the preachiness, the virtue signal stuff, that is what is an issue. We'll get to this more in a bit, but my answer to this kind of thing is ultimately to say, just do the thing, do the representation, and don't make a big deal about it. Okay, I just wanted to play the full thing. It feels like that very preachy, woke scoldy type of feminism and, oh, so we didn't include the part of me saying to be charitable, etc. Funny how that works. Not really gender equality, but almost a flipping of the scripts kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, sure. I think you definitely have a point that there were plenty of other reasons as to why Batwoman was canceled. And I agree with the issues you've raised. But I don't think you can definitively claim that the fact that she was race swapped didn't play a part in people tuning out. Also, I think it's important to note that the very same feeling that turned you away from the Batwoman series is the exact same feeling that turns people away from the representation ideal. Your claims about...
Yes, I understand that, and I agree. Because again, it's the rules for me, not for thee part that is really terrible. The sit down, Whitey, shut up and listen. That is what's awful. But that's not what I'm advocating for.
Feeling preached to are exactly the same feelings that the people who are tired of representation are expressing. Except in your case, you're saying that this doesn't really feel like it's about gender equality, and I'm going to infer here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that what you mean by flipping of the script is that what this felt like was closer to gender superiority, essentially denigrating Batman to prop up Batwoman. Change gender for race here, and boom. Now you know exactly what the people who are speaking out against representation are feeling, especially as we endorse a solution that promotes the rules for thee but not for me hypocrisy. Which, on that note, and lastly, there is the hypocrisy of the representation ideal. Because if we get so up in arms about whitewashing, which, just to be clear, I think is justifiable, I think we should be upset with that. But that means that we can't turn the other cheek when we witness blackwashing.
I agree with this. Put simply, I hate double standards. Like, I don't care. I know some people will justify it and all kind of I don't give a Rules for me, not for thee is super cringe. It does not lead to positive anything at the end of the day.
So I thought it was important to show this because it demonstrates that Christian wasn't just here to win a debate. It seems like he was
And I'm still not, by the way. I'm still trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm a little concerned with some of the ways you've clipped me that maybe, I don't know for a fact, but maybe the feeling might be a little disingenuous. But this is an issue I have with like video essays in general, where they don't just go through the entire thing and react to it like people do on a stream. This isn't even a stream, but like I said, I do the same format of a stream because I want that full, like, everything.
Genuinely trying to engage with my points and determine where and why he either agreed or disagreed with what I was saying. And I can only hope that I've done the same in my response. But in any case, let's keep going.
My take on this, just real quick, and we'll get into it as the video continues here. This is fine. This is fine. And so is this. These are both fine. That's my take, all right? We'll get to it in a bit here, but my take is race swapping, gender swapping, whatever the hell you want to do. I don't give a f***. These are things of fiction.
So I'm glad that we agree that it's hypocritical to allow one and not the other. But I do disagree that it's all okay, especially when the reason is because it's fiction. I think artistic integrity is important, and also, I think it's a little disrespectful to the fans of an IP to just change something about a character that they've grown an attachment to, simply because the new artist wants to come into the space and fulfill an agenda. I also think that in a lot of high fiction, like The Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, thoughtlessly throwing different races into the mix invalidates the meticulous world building that was done by the original authors, which ultimately ends up breaking the immersion of the audience. But this is a different topic entirely, so I'm just gonna leave it here for now. But I do think that when we adapt stories, we should always try to remain as faithful to the source material as possible. And
I believe that we should, for the most part. Yes, 100%. But like, okay, mine and many people's favorite version of Spider-Man is the Sam Raimi version. And yet, there are people... Now, in the comics, Spider-Man... Oh, you probably can't see him in the... No, you can't. Fuck. I don't know how to do this. Okay, we'll just do this. Fuck it. In the comics, Spider-Man has web shooters, which, you know, was in all the movies except for the Sam Raimi movies. Yet, in the Raimi movies, they gave him organic webbing. And I would argue that that's something that actually could play a larger part to his character versus, like, where he grew up or something. Or if you have, not where he grew up, something like, I don't know, what his ethnicity is. Necessarily. It depends, though. Now, I will say, this is where I definitely agree, that while I would like things to stay as true as possible, I don't think it's the end of the world when they don't. Look, my favorite, or at least one of my favorite female superheroes, pretty high up there, is Black Canary. And this is what she looks like in the comics. This is what she looks like in, like, a ton of things. This is her, I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see. Here, I'm gonna just make myself go away for a minute so I can point out all of these. Okay. So, this is her in the Justice League, which was what I was introduced to her as. This is her in Smallville, the CW 2004, I think it was, show. This is her, one of the versions, there's like 5 different Black Canaries in the Arrow series. This is her in something else, and this is her played by, I think her name's like Josie Smollett or something like that, where we have a black woman. Now, at least they made her blonde, but like, this isn't my Black Canary. This isn't my Black Canary. This is 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 my Black Canary. Like, fine. But there's nothing wrong with the other existing. There's nothing wrong with just because it's not for me. It's not the version of these characters that I know and love. That doesn't make it bad. Same thing with, This is I talked about this. Like, I know for maybe not in that video, but I talked about this. I've talked about this before. This is my Mary Jane, not this. Not even a redhead. Like, Zendaya does a great job playing her, don't get me wrong, but this is not this. These are not the same character at all. And to be fair, she's Michelle Jones, she's not Mary Jane. But my point is, I agree. I would love it if these characters would stay as true to the source material as possible, and they didn't do this. But just because they do is not the end of the world. This isn't Aunt May. You kidding me? Like, really? These are the same person, really? No. And I have many issues with the MCU Spider-Man in general, but I learned to accept that when there are adaptations, you have to be willing to just accept there are going to be changes made in those adaptations. Maybe you won't like all those changes, but maybe you can still learn to appreciate the whole thing as a whole. That's okay. I can't tell you how many times my favorite fictional character in anything, Sonic the Hedgehog, has been changed and reinvented. I mean, like, there's the movie, there's the comics, there's the Archie comics, there's the IDW comics, there's the shows, and even with the shows, there's the there's the video games, of course, but even with the shows, there's AOSTH, stands for Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, where it was extremely goofy and more like Looney Tunes on steroids. There's Sonic SatAM, which was a lot darker, and they were this group of freedom fighters that was fighting back this what do you call it? What do you call it? Like, they were the resistance in this, like, dystopian world. There was Sonic Underground, where it's like Sonic and his two siblings, which never show up in anything else, where they're like descendants of their mother, who's a princess, and they're also like rock stars, and and the Sonic fan base is so splintered between all of these different versions of what the character of Sonic is because of this. Adaptations happen. Adaptations will make changes. That's just how it is. You can cry about it, or you can accept it and appreciate the original source material for what it is, and also appreciate the adaptations for what they are. I chose to appreciate them and accept that this is how they are. The same thing happened with one of my other favorite female superheroes, Starfire, right? One of the closest things I had to a first crush growing up, because of her portrayal in the 2003 Teen Titans. Teen Titans is an example. Teen Titans Go, most people who love the original 2003 Teen Titans show and grew up with that fucking hate Teen Titans Go. Like, we can learn to accept and adapt things that change, or we can cry about it because it changed. But things are going to change whether we like it or not.
Anyway, moving on.
It's fine. It's let people make art the way they want to make art. It's whatever. It's fine.
Okay, I know I said I was done with this, but I just want to address what you said here, because this is precisely the issue. This isn't their art. They're not making it. They are co-opting the art of
Everything is derivative. Yeah.
Other artists and using it as a vehicle to spread their own messages. Sure, make your art however you wish, but I don't believe any of us have the right to hijack another artist's work and change how it was originally imagined.
Fucking God. If an artist wants to, if a music artist wants to make a cover of a song, whether they play it live, you know what? Great example here. I've talked before about how much I love rock music. One of my favorite YouTubers and people that, he got me into my favorite band, All Time Low, all these different things, right? Dave Days. Dave Days did a bunch of, and there's an entire thing in general called Pop Goes Punk by, is it Fearless Records, I think, that does it? Where they take a bunch of artists and they take pop songs and they turn them into their own versions. So you have things like, what was the band that just did Stitches by Shawn Mendes? I can't remember what the band was, but you have these things. You have, like, for years, Dave Days, he did like a rock version of Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. He's done rock versions, pop punk, but whatever, versions of fucking John Cougar, John Deere, John 316 by Keith Urban. Love Me Harder by Ariana Grande and The Weeknd. Taylor Swift, Style. And yeah, with Christmas, we have like a ton of like covers of Christmas music being completely different, renditions. He would take these and turn them into his own. Royal by Lords. Royals by Lord, my bad. Yeah, Come and Get It by Selena Gomez. Like, these songs were completely different, and they weren't his work, but he took this work and made it his own. Artists do that all the time. Everything is derivative. Like, it's just the way it is. This is why I say he is maybe not conservative and on the right, but he is being reactionary about this stuff. He's being conservative in the way of saying, this thing should only be this way forever, and it should never change, and if it change is bad, and all that stuff. And, like, that is the core thing of conservatism, is it's just anti-change. Now, is it true that all change is inherently good? No. But is it true that all change is inherently bad? Also no. It's just like, yeah. So, yeah, there are just some things that we fundamentally disagree with here. And I think for me, a lot of this comes down to, like, because I used to be on this guy's side with these things, where I would think, yeah, story shouldn't change. I got so mad when I saw a black woman playing Black Canary, a black woman playing Starfire, a black woman playing Mary Jane. 3 of my first fictional, and not even just fictional, but like my first crushes, like my awakenings, my like romantic and sexual awakenings, in media, and seeing them portrayed by people that at the time I didn't find black women in general attractive, or at least I didn't think I did. That's a whole nother thing, though. And like here they were playing some of my favorite and like to me very important fictional characters. And again, I saw what Ultimate Spider-Man did, the TV show, did to the character of Spider-Man, and Marvel Spider-Man, the awful 2017 TV show, and the MCU, and I just had heartbreak after heartbreak, and eventually I realized these things are going to change. My version of these characters will always still exist, and I can still enjoy them, but they're going to change, they're going to be readapted, and that's okay. I can either cry about it, or I can accept and embrace it. I choose the latter because it's healthier. It's healthier for my mental health, my enjoyment of everything. It's better for me. It's better for everybody. Instead of getting up in arms about blackwashing characters, I can just say, okay, I would prefer if they looked like this. Or what's the you guys know what Supergirl looks like from the comics? Not like this. Now, listen, the actress, beautiful woman, great, gorgeous, good for her. I don't remember her name. I don't really care. It's not important right now. But you know what Supergirl looks like in the comics? This. Pretty different here, right? Yeah. I can cry about it, or I can embrace it and accept it. They do this all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. Calm down.
Imagined for our own purposes.
Yeah, real quick, by the way, hot take with anime. Everyone's gonna hate me, especially when it comes to anime. Dubs over subs. I don't give a f***. If I want to read a book, I'm gonna read a book. If I want to watch a movie or a TV show, I'm gonna watch a movie or a TV show.
Honestly, out of everything in this video, this part offended me the most. Nah, I'm sorry, bro, but it is subs over dubs all day, every day. Watch the
It is for Sonic X. The dub of Sonic X is awful. The 4Kids dub is awful. But generally speaking, it's dubs over subs for me.
art in its original language as the artists envision.
Oh god, I did that with what was the fucking movie or the TV show? It was like really big. It's about like exploitation of the working class, destitute. Oh my god, what was it called? It was a really good Squid Games. Squid Games. Yeah. I watched that dubbed. I don't give a fuck. Some people are like, "Oh, you can only watch it subbed." No, I'm not watching it subbed. I want to watch it dubbed. Sorry. To me, okay, for one, I read as people talk, so I can't just watch the dub. I'm not able to focus on like the screen and the text at the same time, so that's me. But yeah. Now, if you want to have English subtitles and the English voice, I'm okay with that. But I'm gonna choose English voice over anything else.
It. Everybody in the world already has to learn to speak our language. The least we can do is watch their TV shows in their own language, while still having the privilege of reading it in our own. Okay, I'm joking, but I'm not. But I'm joking. In any case, it's really not that deep. Do what makes you happy. But like I said, it's subgang for life. The reality is that Motoko's Asianness is completely irrelevant to the story, seeing
The only way you could say that it matters, by the way, is their name. But especially, and I've never seen Ghost in the Shell, so I don't know this for a fact, but I believe it's like super far in the future. It's like a cyberpunk. Oh, by the way, the Netflix Cyberpunk series was amazing.
okay, redeemed yourself a little bit here. Netflix is Cyberpunk and also the actual game, if you actually got a chance to play it, were both incredible. But anyway, let's get back to the important stuff.
But the first weekend, that's for us. To do anything other than this is anti-black.
Okay, just real quick, identity politics, virtue signaling, so much cringe that turns people off from the left and progressivism, and so much that the right loves to use to say, oh, look, this is how these progressive people are. No. Most people were not being like this woman. The important thing to know about this instance is that while it's super cringe, she is a minority in her stance on this matter.
Okay, so I agree. This woman's take is not representative of the left, and portraying her as such was not my intention, especially because
Not just the left, but people in general. I was not saying that she was not I was not saying that she was not representative of the left, and that was the problem. I'm saying the disingenuousness, not even necessarily of him in that video, but like people will take that and say, oh, this is what all, the left, progressives, black people, whatever, this is how they feel, that kind of thing. And like, no. And trust me, when actual outrage like this happens and people want to do this kind of bullshit, that's the shit you see with the Hogwarts Legacy boycott. Like, you didn't see that kind of thing with this for a reason.
As I've said, I try not to play into the whole right versus left debate. As I outlined in my original video, the reason I used her as an example was to demonstrate the logical progression of the philosophy of the representation ideal. Again, if you tell people that certain characters are for them, if you allow for the mentality of rules for thee but not for me to fester, and if you refuse to set objective parameters around what you hope to achieve, then it makes complete sense that out of that concoction of hypocrisy, this kind of take would manifest. Of course, I acknowledge and concede that her perspective isn't indicative of the entire representation movement. However, what I was trying to demonstrate by using her as an example is that the rot lies in the thought process itself. A thought process that essentially leads to a pro-segregation argument, but this time in favor of black people, which to me is the smoking gun that clearly illustrates that we're not trying to destroy the tools of our oppressors. We're trying to use them for ourselves.
Wait, but I said in his own video here that he's like responding to, I said rules for me, not for thee is bullshit. Like I said that. I said that in my own video. I said that in the video. Like he didn't like clip that out or anything. Like he showed me saying that. So maybe he's just having a moment like I did when I said, "Oh, he's misunderstanding this." When again I misspoke. Maybe he's just misspeaking here. I don't know. But like, yeah, I addressed that, man. But oh god, he reminded me of something that I wanted to bring up, but I forgot what it was.
But anyway, we're not in favor of black. I thought perspective isn't indicative of the entire representation movement. However, what I was in favor of black people, which to me is the smoking gun that clearly illustrates that we're not trying to destroy the tools of our oppressors. We're trying to use them for ourselves. But anyway, on to the next clip.
I don't remember what I was going to say. He made me think of something. God damn it.
And more importantly, it simply doesn't address the root cause of the problem, which is, in my opinion,
No, this is important. I have to go back to his little speech. I have to find out. Oh, fuck, what just happened? Oh, that makes you go back if you click back too many times? I guess that makes sense.
Ideal. Again, if you tell people that certain woman's take is not representative of the left,
Right.
and portraying her as such was not my intention, especially because, as I've said, I try not to play into the whole right versus left debate. As I outlined in my original video, the reason I used her as an example was to demonstrate the logical progression of the philosophy of the representation ideal. Again, if you tell people that certain characters are for them, if you allow for the mentality of rules for thee but not for me to fester, and if you refuse to set objective parameters around what you hope to achieve, then it makes complete sense that out of that concoction of hypocrisy, this kind of take would manifest. Of course, I acknowledge and concede that her perspective isn't indicative of the entire representation movement. However, what I was trying to demonstrate by using her as an example is that the rot lies in the thought process itself. A thought process that essentially leads to a pro-segregation argument, but this time in favor of black people, which to me is the smoking gun that clearly illustrates that we're not trying to destroy the tools of our oppressors. We're trying to use them for ourselves. But anyway, on to the next clip. And more importantly, it simply doesn't address the
Okay, fuck. I guess I just didn't... I thought of something and I totally forgot as he was saying it. My bad.
root cause of the problem, which is, in my opinion, the myriad of socioeconomic policies that continue to keep minority groups isolated and trapped in poverty, resulting in these communities being forced to resort to certain behaviors just to survive or make it out. In my opinion, that is the internal bleeding that needs to be addressed here. It doesn't...
He's correct. But that's not the point of this video.
I'm sorry, but no, that quite literally is the point of this.
Oh my god. Bro. The fuck? Where is it? Wait.
People trying to survive just like us, and they have no obligation to answer for the crimes of people they never knew and likely don't even agree with ideologically. In any case, this is where I believe the ideal of representation, if left unchecked, will lead us to a...
This is true. However, of that, too much detail is the same. Inequality. I want to say things that bridge the gap where, like, that argument can be
an out anti-black or racist,
with a racist backlash to
and weaponized it in our favor. And anybody who calls out this hypocrisy is labeled as anti-black or racist.
with hey, look, this where any, I mean, in modern look, so we didn't even talk about the racist backlash of the Little Mermaid that I brought up. Have it like those. The issue is this might. Okay.
In these communities being forced to resort.
Okay.
To certain behaviors just to survive or make it out. In my opinion, that is the internal bleeding that needs to be addressed here. It doesn't
He's correct. But that's not the point of this video.
matter if a young black boy living in the inner city sees a TV show about doctors where the lead is a black man and decides to become a doctor himself if he doesn't have access to the...
Oh yeah, I meant that's not the point of his video. It's not. It's not. Like, it wasn't. His point is that we don't need representation in media. That's not the argument. The argument, like, this is just shifting the blame. This is like when people will be like, oh, if you care about the homeless so much, why don't you open up your own house? Like, the fuck? No, that's not, no.
video. The fact that representation doesn't address these systemic issues at all. Hence, we bleed
That wasn't the point of, at least that's not what I got from the point of his video.
internally while chasing this dubious ideal that, in my opinion, will ultimately fail to heal us. And that brings us to your next point. It doesn't matter if a young black boy living in the inner city sees a TV show about doctors where the lead is a black man and decides to become a doctor himself if he doesn't have access to the tools that would allow him to achieve that dream in the first place.
But if that lead doctor is seen by other people, especially white people who already have the power to, say, give him the ability, the schooling, the anything to be a doctor, then that representation is good and important. And that's why it matters. That's why it's important. There have been studies on this where people with, say, black-sounding names are less likely to get callbacks on applications than people with white-sounding names. Positive representation is one of the myriad of things that could go toward resolving that type of issue.
Okay, so I'm going to split this response into two parts. First, let's talk about the young boy, because I don't think that the process that you're outlining here has much real-world applicability. And I don't think that it actually ties into the second point that you made, which, by the way, is completely valid. The first claim that you're making is that a white person who is in a position of power might see a black doctor on TV and decide to personally invest into impoverished black communities in order to encourage youth in these neighborhoods to become doctors. That process occurring...
No, that's not what I said. Oh my god. No, the point is, he is going to be more likely to accept and give black people a chance because he already saw them as a doctor in media. He's going to give them a chance to be a doctor in real life more than he would without that representation.
Isn't really corroborated by any real-world evidence. It is far more likely that white people and other minorities in positions of power will invest into these communities after witnessing injustices take place in them, not after seeing positive representations of minorities in media. BLM garnered support and investment after bringing widespread attention
That's not what I said.
to the deaths of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and Eric Gardner, not because they created a TV show with a black president. Positive representation has two discernible effects corroborated by evidence. First, that young black boy will see that black doctor, which could potentially encourage him to believe that he could become a doctor as well. And that just brings us back to my original point, because if he doesn't have the tools to achieve that dream, then that positive representation is ultimately inconsequential. And the second effect is exactly what you highlighted, which, as you noted, is supported by evidence. So for example, let's say Darius and Jerome, which are stereotypically black names, are doctors on a popular TV show. Sure, white people that are exposed to that TV show may start to destigmatize those names over time thanks to that exposure. I don't disagree with you there. But again, and I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but my point is, what if from the beginning those white people understood that those names aren't stigmatized? What if they could watch a TV show where Darius and Jerome are criminals, and then the next day they see either a Darius or Jerome on a job application and not immediately think that these people are likely to be criminals because the last people they saw with those names were criminals on a TV show? I just think that that is a much healthier reality to aim for, one where we apply critical thought and disallow the mainstream media from making decisions for us. But let's keep going.
But that's... What?
Because we're criminals on a TV show. I just think that that is a see either a Darius or Jerome on a job application. Those white people understood that those names aren't stigmatized. What if they could watch a TV show where Darius and Jerome are criminals, and then the next day they see either a Darius or Jerome on a job application and not immediately think that these people are likely to be criminals because the last people they saw with those names were criminals on a TV show? I just think
Yes, but how do they get to that point? How do they get to that point where they don't think, just because the last people they saw, it's not that that's the last people, that's the only people they're seeing.
that is a much healthier reality to aim for, one where we apply critical thought and disallow the mainstream media from making decisions for us. But let's keep going because we're getting close to the end now.
I disagree with this mindset that's almost, we should only do things at the political level and shouldn't worry about anything at the cultural level, because each feed into each other.
So I know I already addressed this, but I never claimed that we shouldn't focus on things at the cultural level. And the solution that I've been presenting since my first video on this topic directly addresses the cultural changes that I think we should be making. I do not deny.
Yeah, but you think we shouldn't make your cultural change is we don't need the change. Like that's...
that more diversity in storytelling will facilitate an environment where better, more interesting, never before...
Or at least, again, to give the most benefit of the doubt and good faith, that's how I understand it based on what he's presenting.
Stories can thrive. And so I advocate for different stories to be told, featuring different types of people from all over the world. In any case, this brings us to your solution.
Okay. My solution to all this, I think it's a lot simpler than some people make it out to be. Really what it comes down to at the end of the day is the positive representation is important, and the virtue signaling cringy turns everybody off. So don't do that. Do the representation, do the positive representation, but don't do it cringy. Don't virtue signal about it. Don't go on these media campaigns about how, oh, we're so brave for having a black person or a gay person or a trans person or a not able-bodied. I don't know the right, you know what I mean though. We're so brave for having this person. Like, no, don't do that. Put them in the show, put them in the movie, put them in the video game, and then, and represent them positively. And then, if you have conservatives freaking out like the Quartering and people like that, and news outlets and all this, you turn to them and you say, what's your problem? Like, they ask, oh, you made them gay for a political statement. No, it just seemed like it fit the character. What are you talking about? I wrote the character and it seemed, oh yeah, they're gay. They would have a boyfriend. Or, oh, they're gay, they would have a girlfriend. Like, okay. Or, hey, they're not really into relationships at all. They're ace, or they're arrow, or they're arrow ace, or whatever, right? You do the things without the virtue signaling.
So
Alright, we gotta find the full clip again, because he won't show it. Where? Here we go. Person. Stick with me here. Bentley the Turtle from the Sly Cooper series. I said stay with me. Please do. I have a point. You already saw the pictures, probably. Bentley is a character, a part of the Sly Cooper series, and there's a moment at the end of Sly Cooper 2, spoilers for a almost 20-year-old game now, it came out in 2004, almost 20-year-old game, spoilers for a 19-year-old video game, but Bentley has a moment in which at the end of the game, he gets crushed, and he loses the ability to walk. What does he do in the next game? He comes out with a badass wheelchair that doubles as a rocket, a hovering technology. It's got these little claw things on it, Doc Ock style, where he can use it to, they're thieves, so he can use it to pickpocket and do different things like that. He can't use his legs, but he uses brain power to make this little mech wheelchair, and it's fucking awesome. And you know what that is? That is an example of positive representation. But you know what they never did in the game? They did do a few moments, this is in Sly 3, there was a whole arc where the character Murray felt very down on himself and held himself responsible for Bentley being in that situation. But Bentley himself never had this moment where he was like, oh, I can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And no one ever had this moment where it was just like wink to the camera or anything where it was like, see, we're doing positive representation here with a person in a wheelchair. They just did it. That's the point. You don't virtue signal. You don't preach. You just do it. And then when and if you have the freaks come out and be like, oh, why are they this? Why this is a political statement? You turn around and say, what's political about it? This is just how I wanted to represent the character. Well, what's your problem? The reason I wanted to show that in its full entirety in my own video is to show that I already went in depth onto what I'm talking about, and yet he didn't show that. Again, I don't want to say that he's being disingenuous. I don't know that he is. I have nothing that I can show that for a fact, but I'm feeling some type of way.
Essentially, just to paraphrase, the solution that you've presented is to keep moving forward with positive representation, but to cease all of the virtue signaling that has come along with it. And sure, I will admit that I believe that this would definitely be an improvement. I think your solution does have some viability to it. If you stop all the press tour preaching about how necessary and important it was to include these characters, I do think that it would make it a lot easier for certain groups to swallow what the media was putting out. However, and this is the last time I'll say this, I promise, this solution doesn't address the underlying issues that we agree need to be addressed. It doesn't address media's undue influence on our perceptions of people. It doesn't address the fact that representation reinforces the idea that you need to see someone who resembles you in some capacity in order to relate to them. It doesn't address the inherent hypocrisy of the rules for thee but not for me mentality. It doesn't address the inherent subjectivity of positive versus negative representation. It doesn't address the complete lack of an objective end goal. And perhaps most importantly, it doesn't address the systemic issues that still plague these communities. And seeing as it fails to address all of these issues while
Okay, yes. Representation in and of itself does not address any of those issues, or all of them. But I did, in my video that you responded to, in my hour-and-a-half long video, and this one's like, what, 3 hours probably? Jesus Christ. 2.5 hours, goddamn, yeah. Yeah.
while exacerbating pre-existing dilemmas, I still don't see it as a viable solution to achieving an equal and or equitable society. I think it patently misunderstands human psychology and seeks to use the power of past oppressors for itself.
No, I'm sorry. I think he is patently misunderstanding human psychology to think that the broad amount of people can just look at things and say, oh yeah, that's like to separate fiction from reality. Like, again, I think people should be able to, but a lot of them can't.
Misguided attempts to achieve equitability while villainizing and demonizing any group that calls out its hypocrisies. And so ultimately, again, I think that Christian's solution would be a step in a direction that I do believe would be an improvement on our current reality. But I still don't think that it is the solution that will once and for all dismantle the ingrained systemic and societal pillars that continue to disadvantage minority communities. But in any case, I think that's going to be it for this one. If you made it this far, thank you so much for indulging me. There were a few more points that I wanted to address, but they were entirely inconsequential to the larger discussion. But again, I just want to send out a genuine, heartfelt thank you to Christian for taking the time to go through my entire video and critique it. I know we don't agree.
You're welcome. Wish you showed my entire video as well.
But for me, at least, having the opportunity to defend my thesis was invaluable. And I'm just thankful that it was someone like Christian who decided to speak on my video. Because it could have been someone who just wanted to win a debate or start some internet beef, because that—
And I'm still not doing that, by the way. I'm still not trying to win a debate or start an internet. I don't give a fuck. Like, I do want to just argue the ideas. And again, I just found something that the way that I find videos that I want to cover on my channel here is I watch them on my own, and if I find myself constantly pausing to talk about them, as if I'm doing this, I realize, hey, I should make a video about this. That's it.
That is also extremely prevalent on this website and on the internet in general. And so again, thank you to Christian. I hope I didn't misrepresent you in this. And of course, if you have the time, please go and check out his original video so that you can get the full context of his argument. Obviously, it's going to be linked in the description. In any case, as always, I hope this made sense, but if it didn't, please feel free to let me know so that I can try to address any misconceptions in the comments. But with that said, I wish you all the very best going forward. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, all right. We have your essays are so insightful, da 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 da. There was a comment here. That I wanted to point out. His solution of doing the representation without the virtue signaling is exactly what conservatives have been saying this whole time. Yes, they have been saying it. For a long time, the narrative was, oh, we just want them to make their own things. We just want them to make their own things. And yet, Hershey's recently, and I might do a full thing on this, I don't know, but I want to give an example of this because this is completely not the case. Hershey's recently did this campaign where they have this thing, Her-She, for Women's Special Day, whatever that's called. I'm sorry. I know I go over a lot of these videos when I'm kind of sleep deprived. I probably shouldn't do that, but it's like National Women's Day. That's what it's called. Sorry. Anyway. So they did this like little campaign, and they have all these women here holding the bars. Cool, cool, great. Now, this woman is trans. What are we seeing here? You know what they didn't do about this entire thing? They didn't put her on a pedestal. First of all, she's literally in the back behind them. They didn't put her on a pedestal and say, oh, look at us, we're so brave and inclusive for including a trans woman. Yet, there were people, you can imagine the kind of people, the Daily Wire type of people, that got so up in arms just because she's fucking here. Oh, make your own stuff. We don't care. Blah, blah, blah. His solution is what the conservative. No, fuck off. This is what I'm saying. Do the representation with a bunch of other cis women, trans women with a bunch of other cis women. Do the representation without virtue signaling. That's what Hershey's did. And what do they get? Bullshit. Like fucking. It's so bad. It's so funny, but it's so stupid. Jeremy and the Daily Wire guys came out with this dumbass Jeremy's Chocolate, and you go to this website, IHateHershey's.com. It's this whole thing where they're like, we don't support trans, we know there's only two genders and two sexes, so we came out with she, her, nutless, and he, him with nuts. And if you need me to tell you the difference, that's a problem. Like, so dumb. It is impressive, though, how quickly they came out with their own product in response to this, though. Unwoke your inbox. Jesus fucking Christ. God, oh my God. Really? $25 for a pack of 4? And then 46 for a pack of 10. Oh my God. Guys, they're just little... This is insane. This is fucking ridiculous. Like, they'll always complain. The reactionaries will always complain, because even when you do it without the virtue signaling, it all comes back to this. It really does. This is the culture war in a nutshell. This is it. Anyway, look. As far as Thief is concerned, I don't know what to make of the guy. I think he is well-meaning. I think he just has reactionary tendencies, which I think are natural for a lot of people to have in general. I really do. I don't think he's a bad person. I didn't when I originally covered his video. I still don't. I think that he is somebody who, again, I used to think in a lot of similar ways to him. I think that he has bought into an amount of the culture war idea that we don't need representation because representation in general is cringe, but there's a good way to go about the representation, and the reality is, even when you do it my way, if you want to call it that, the reactionaries will still cry about it. I mean, they cry about Miles Morales because he's a token character. I'll be covering a video on that soon, I think. He's black, so he's token, of course. So on and so forth. You have all kind of things like this. This is nothing new. This bullshit has been happening like forever. Xander Hall has talked about this idea that we're in Gamergate 2.0, and you know what? I think we are. I really do. This is just absolutely insane. This is wild. This is just, again, like, he may not be a conservative politically, but he's a conservative in the way of thinking that, like, things should stay the way they are and not change and all that stuff. That is conservative, literally conserving. So, again, I just came to the point where I really believed and found that it is most healthy, mentally speaking and otherwise, to accept and embrace change rather than cry about it like a little bitch. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but that is what a lot of people that he is speaking, validating their concerns, so to speak. So anyway, yeah, as always, these are just my thoughts. Please let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more. Links in the description below, of course. Thief, if you are watching this yourself, I thank you as well for covering this the way that you did. Again, I still feel like some of the things you didn't show in their full context, and I understand if that was in the effort of time. I get that. Not everybody likes long form videos like I do, going on an hour or 3 hours here, but I just feel like that would have been better. But at the same time, I also agree that I think we're done here. I don't mean to be causing any beef or any shit like that. I just wanted to respond fairly as you responded to me. If any of it seemed all over the place, my bad. I've been out of this for a couple weeks, and just kind of getting back into the flow of everything. So yeah, I hope you're well. I hope your fan base is well, and mine will be as well. And guys watching this as well, do not harass him. Don't go to him and don't do any bullshit. You can go to his video and say that you disagree and explain why you do, like, that's fine, but do not harass him. Don't harass any of the people following, any of his subscribers. Don't do any of that. Like, that shouldn't even have to be said, but I understand that it does. So anyway, but again, no ill will toward you, Thief, if you're watching this, and I hope there's no ill will toward me. I know there were some things that I said where I kind of hated, maybe made some accusations that you might look at and be like, oh no, that's not true at all, kind of thing. But hey, you did the same thing with me. It's fine. People misunderstand each other. It happens all the time, So it is what it is. As always, though, like I said, those are my thoughts. So yeah, take care of each other out there, guys. Please be kind in the comments, both mine and if you go to his as well. And yeah, later, guys. Peace and love.